Welcome. My name is Jeff Ball. I'm Associate Chair of Research for the Department of Pediatrics. And before we get started with our keynote presentation today, which we're all anxious and excited to listen to, Dr. Forgy and I just had a couple introductory remarks. So Sarah, if you want to kick us off here.
Thanks, Jeff. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to welcome you all here today to our inaugural event we have an in-residence program that we started in the Department of Pediatrics, and Jeff was kind enough to step up with a brilliant idea of having a writer in residence as our first trial in the program. And so we're so excited that Cathy McPhalen agreed to join us, and she has some fabulous ideas about helping us all, not only with our writing now, but in the future, as she's setting up some really neat things asynchronously for us to use as we go forward. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to Jeff for making the suggestion as our first writer in residence, and also to Cathy for the advice and the knowledge and the tips and tricks that she's going to share with us so we can all become wizards in writing. So thank you to both.
Thanks very much, Sarah. And just a bit of background, over the years as a researcher, I've written a number of grants, and I can tell you that the quality of my writing and the quality of the writing of my colleagues, those of us who work with Cathy over the years, has improved dramatically. I don't want to steal any of her thunder today, but I've had a really positive experience working with grant writers and editors, and Cathy in particular, over the years. I'm hopeful that some of the strategies and the tips and tricks that she's learned and gained over the years, hopefully will be valuable to all of you for participating. So this is the first event. We'll have a number of things that'll happen over the next 3 or 4 months, but Cathy is our in-residence writer, editor for the next 3 to 4 months. So this will be the first of hopefully a series of events that you'll all derive some value in. So with that, it's my pleasure to hand it over to Cathy.
Thanks very much, both Jeff and Sarah. It's been an exciting thing to plan this first round of in residence, and from the sound of it, Jeff has some excellent ideas for people who will be able to follow up in other areas, helping you with your research and things like grant applications and manuscripts and so forth. I'd like to start. First, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we live on and work on traditional lands of Inuit, First Nations, and Métis. We honor the ancestry, heritage, and gifts of these Indigenous peoples. Just to reiterate Jeff's reminder, if you could please make sure that you're muted. Most of the interaction between us during this session, I'll ask you to do through the chat, and I'll make sure that I keep monitoring that so that I'm seeing what you're asking and what you're saying in response to what I'm asking you to do. So let me go in here. I'm going to start by sharing my screen because I have some slides, and then I need to go back and make sure that I can see the chat, which keeps disappearing every time I share my screen. Okay, there, I think we're set. So just a little bit of context for the sorts of things that I'm going to talk about today. So the essential ingredient for a fundable grant application is proposing excellent research. And the essential ingredient for publishing your manuscript in a good journal is describing strong and interesting research. So those are the necessary preconditions. Clear writing can help you with both of those goals. And from my perspective, the way that clear writing helps you achieve grant funding and publications of your manuscripts is by making the job of your reviewers easier. So you're helping them to understand the quality of your work quickly and easily. You're helping them to see quickly and easily why your work is a good fit for their funding goals or their journal readers. So you're just making the process easier for them as they try to assess what you're talking about. Today, we're going to play with a perpetual problem in writing about your academic research, or in fact, virtually any kind of writing. Too many words. In particular, many types of research documents have limits on the number of pages or words or characters that are permitted. So today, what I'd like to try to do is show you just a few of the techniques that I use when I edit other people's writing to fit those kinds of limits. And I'll note here that it is always easier to trim other people's writings, much easier than it is to trim your own. So you might want to contemplate getting a trimming buddy or a group together to help you with this kind of thing. We don't see our own problems in our writing, our own mistakes. That's just human nature. And if you want, I can cite research on that. So how does trimming your writing make the job of your reviewers easier? Primarily by cleaning out unnecessary complexity, doing things like making the wording more direct and sentences less complicated. Now, the tips that I'm going to be talking about here are primarily useful after you've applied the big tools to tame the length of whatever document you're writing. So you've pared down your content to just the absolute essentials that your audience of reviewers or whoever will need. In grant applications or manuscripts, a lot of the less essential material tends to show up in introductions and background sections. So those are good places to check before you go into the final trim. You've already gotten feedback from colleagues on what content they think you should include or omit. And that kind of feedback can be really insightful in telling you that this is totally unnecessary for this particular audience, or in contrast, that you've missed something that's absolutely essential for the audience that you're writing for. Another big tool, you've used figures and tables where they're permitted to effectively summarize details. And that can save you a lot of words if you could just put the details into this little box instead of 3 paragraphs of words. And you've switched your style of references to superscript numbers where that's permitted for the document that you're writing. That saves an amazing amount of space. So you've done all of that. What can you do when you get to the point where you've got your document trimmed so that you still have, maybe a couple of hundred words that you have to get rid of to fit it into the space or the allowed word count or the allowed character count? So that's where my 3 top tips for today come in. So the first tip is to shun the shun. Basically, what I mean by that is to try to avoid using words that end in tion. And we'll see there's some similar words that you can also trim with this particular tip. So I've got one example on this slide, and I'll show you some more as we go along. The stronger and shorter version to start the particular sentence here is "we estimate." So there's no shun word there. The weaker and longer version is "we provide an estimation." And I think you can see quite quickly that substituting estimate in place of an estimation is going to save you words and space and characters. The technical term for these kinds of words like shun is nominalizations, which you don't need to remember. And in fact, it's a bit ironic because it's a demonstration of exactly the phenomenon that we're trying to avoid, using words that end in shun. But The practical effect of using these Shun words and similar ones is to turn short, strong verbs like estimate into longer, feeble nouns, an estimation. And it adds extra words around those longer, feeble nouns. So we want to reverse that in our writing. So to trim text easily, we can hunt for these Shun words and replace them with shorter, stronger verbs. And I'm going to give you another example here, very common in academic style writing. The stronger and shorter version without the Shun word is we recommend. Weaker and longer would be something like we are making recommendations on. And I think you can see quite easily how you can get rid of the Shun word, turn it into a strong, short verb. So here's an example that you can try yourself. The weaker and longer version here is our team undertook an evaluation of these results. So what would you propose as the stronger and shorter version? If you've got an idea, drop it in the chat. I'll give people a few seconds to think here, and then I'll show you my possible solution. Yes, exactly. Yeah, you've got it. We evaluate or we evaluate. We completed, yeah. We completed an evaluation. That's still got a Shun in there if you want, but yeah, there's no one right answer to any of these examples that I'm giving. There are just fairly common ones, but yes, you clearly got the idea. Good. All right. Now we'll go to a more complex. Okay, there's our team evaluated the results. That would have been my answer. A more complex version. So I'll just preface this by saying I've got 3 of these try it slides in here. All of them are based on text that was part of the introduction to my PhD thesis a long time ago. And I've gone in and added some of these problematic types of constructions to it for you to find and get rid of. So what I want you to do is look at this short paragraph, find places where we might be able to substitute these weaker, longer noun phrases with stronger verbs. Drop your ideas in the chat, and I will go in and change things as we go along. And I'll tell you now, this starts at 70 words long. I was able to trim it pretty easily down to 51. So tell me what things you'd like to change here to make it shorter. Yes, for the performance of, we can substitute perform. A protein's 3D structure determines, yeah, absolutely. We don't need defines the, we don't need the of, whoops, hang on. I hate editing in PowerPoint. Providing, transporting, catalyzing, yeah, includes providing structural support, transporting metabolites, and catalyzing, yeah. And this is good because you're picking up on things that are not strictly words ending in tion. So provision, catalysis, all of these things, it's just similar sorts of phrases with the weaker, more complicated noun stuff. A protein's 3D structure, that's an error on my part, but yes, determines its function of properties, structural support. Yeah, okay. Any further ones in here? For evaluating, yep. Okay. The involvement, yes, remove the involvement of its structure, absolutely. So ment words, -ment words that end in ment, are also really good ones to spot easily along with the shuns. One more that I would do here is instead of saying to find the relationship of that structure to biochemical and physical data, I would substitute to relate that structure. And I think those are pretty much all of the ones that I snuck in there. So excellent, you've clearly got the idea. All right, quick debrief there. What one word in those phrases that we changed frequently tipped you off to an opportunity to trim? So we're not talking here about the shuns or the ments or whatever, but there's a word in those phrases, types of phrases, not necessarily the. Yeah, we got the of. Thank you. Two people got it right there. So yes, you can scan your text for phrases that end in of. And often before the word of, you'll find a shun word or a ment word or something similar to it that you can trim. Not every time you see of, it has other uses as well. But this is one thing that you can scan for easily in your text or somebody else's if you're giving them a hand. Okay, so that's tip number one. Number two. Well, hang on a minute, I'm in the wrong. There we go. Number two, we're going to give the action in our sentences to strong verbs. You'll see some overlap between this technique and the previous technique, looking for those weak involved noun phrases and making strong verbs out of them. Here we're looking for weak verb phrases, action phrases, and giving the action to a strong verb instead. So one example, this experiment measures. Simple, strong, short. The weaker and longer version, this experiment will involve measuring. And please trust me that I am not making up these kinds of examples. These are actual phrasings that I see all the time in work where I'm trying to shorten things. Does not mean that the people I'm working with are bad writers. Some of them are excellent writers, but they're just not thinking about these kinds of things when they're writing, so they find it hard to cut their own work. So I'll give you another example here. Stronger and shorter version, we interpret these results from. Weaker and longer version, we make these interpretations of results. So here we're using a strong verb, interpret, instead of make, which is a fairly wishy-washy verb. And we're getting rid of the shun word at the same time. So double-barreled here. In your own writing, when you give the main action to weaker verbs, this may also indicate to reviewers that you're not sure about what you're saying, or even worse, that you're hedging your wording to cover up a weakness in your idea. You know, we really don't want that to happen. We want our ideas expressed clearly and firmly. So to trim text easily, we hunt for the action words, the verbs, and replace these long clusters of weak verbs with simple, strong verbs. Okay, another example for you to try. Here's a short one. We plan to engage in interviewing patients. What would you do with that to put the action in a simple, strong verb? Again, you can put your ideas in the chat. Yeah, we plan to interview, if that's the actual thing that's going on. You can even just say, we will interview. Either one could be appropriate depending on the exact situation you're writing about, but the shortest and simplest version is we will interview patients. So let's try. Actually, the other thing I should mention here too, because I tend to get carried away and keep rolling right along. If you have any questions, put them in the chat as well, and I'll try to monitor and answer them as we go along. But I've got another piece of sample text for you to try this strategy of giving the action to strong verbs. So here's the sample text. And again, if you want to put your suggestions for places to shorten this, primarily using this tip about strong verbs, put your ideas in the chat, and then I will change things up as we go. This one starts at 81 words, and I was able to trim it down to 51, which is fairly, yes, studying effects, good. Instead of doing studies of the effects. Let me see here. Tends to, yep, rather than has a tendency to. Or you could even shorten that to provides clues. Again, it depends on your circumstances. If it's legitimate to have a little bit of hedging here for whatever reason, that's fine. You could say tends to. Otherwise, you could just say provides clues. Let me see. The goal is to make progress. Yeah, we don't need eventual goal. We can just say goal is to make progress in, yes, we probably don't even need to say to make progress. We could just say is to design and synthesize proteins. Again, it will depend on your specific circumstances, how tightly you want to trim things, but these are all things. Somewhere here, I thought I saw, yes, thank you. Somebody said clues, instead of saying that are indicative of, we can just say that indicate. How small alterations are, yes, and we don't need the are able to, we could just say how small alterations in structure correlate with changes in functional properties. Let me see. Yep, so we've got those. What about the last couple of sentences here? Any ideas there on, oh, somewhere? Yeah, okay, we've got the provides clues. I keep scanning this chat here to see what are, oops, sorry. Keep my hand off the mouse. Knowledge is still insufficient to apply. Yeah, absolutely. Any others here that look a little wordy to you? One that I would take out, yes, oh, thank you, you've got it right there. Take out that serve. Why do we have to have something serve to perform new and desirable functions? Why don't we just have it perform new and desirable functions? Yes, remove the process of. Sure. Or how about take out the apply as well? How about we just say still insufficient to design new proteins. Anything else in this last sentence? Yeah, we could take out the still. If you were talking in a more historical sense, you might want to keep that in, but it's perfectly good to take it out too. Yeah, let's get rid of the rational basis stuff. So design new proteins. Do we need to say with reference to a rational basis? Could we just maybe say rationally? Yeah, I think we need to keep the rationally. in this particular area of study. But again, the kinds of changes that you can make or that you should make will depend in part on your area and your knowledge of what your readers understand already and what they need to be told explicitly. So in this case, I would tell them explicitly that we want to do this protein designing rationally, but it may not be necessary in other circumstances. So really good. Clearly people are spotting the problems. Great to see so many different people spotting problems as we go along. All right. So possible strategy number 3 for trimming. Here we're going to be decluttering. And I am not going to talk about keeping only the words that bring joy to your life or anything like that. But the idea here is to take out words, phrases that are really not necessary to express your ideas clearly. So that's the purpose overall. And here are some specific kinds of things that you can take out. Now, traditionally, academic writing has been highly formal. It uses certain types of words and phrases frequently. The unfortunate effect, particularly with older academic writing or older styles of academic writing, is that you can sound pompous if you write that way today. From our perspective, it's also a far more wordy style than is necessary to make a clear point. So we want our ideas to stand out strongly and clearly without being obscured by extra cluttering words. Our writing can still have a professional tone without unnecessary flourishes and frills. So some of the kinds of flourishes and frills that you can get rid of are filler words. So do you really need to say that this is a very exciting idea, that you're actually going to do something, or that generally this is a problem? Could you get by without those words? You can ask yourself the question, and probably about 90% of the time, the answer will be, yes, I can get by without those words. And in fact, it makes my sentence even stronger and more clear. There's a writing style called throat clearing, which is sort of the hem before you actually get into the meat of what you're trying to say, or the protein of what you're trying to say. And this is phrases like, in fact, needless to say. It appears that in regards to, with reference to, the amount of, and my personal all-time favorite in academic writing, the field of, which is, again, all of these, take a look at them when you find them and say, do I really need to say in the field of biology? Or can I just say in biology? Or more appropriate today, in the field of pediatrics? Could I just say in pediatrics or in pediatric research? So a couple of more types of clutter that you might be able to get rid of. Look for redundancies. And these are not always easy to spot because they tend to be pretty much standard in the way we talk, and they're often terms that are standard in a field. Successful solution is one that particularly irritates me. Is it a solution if it's not successful? So could you just say we found a solution rather than a successful solution? Past history is one that crops up a lot in medical materials. Are we contrasting this with future history? Or could we just say history? Because that means the same thing as past history. So redundancies like that. And then one that can gain you entire sentences and occasionally even entire paragraphs of trimming is to remove statements of generic common knowledge. And I'm not kidding when I say that I too often see sentences like, cancer is a serious health problem in Canada. Highly likely that whoever's reading your document knows that already and doesn't really need to be told that specifically. They might need a few statistics on incidence or prevalence of your particular kind of cancer, but they don't need to be told that cancer is a problem. So those are some of the kinds of clutter that you can take out of your writing, shorten it, and make it more clear and give it more impact, because people are not distracted by these all these extra frills and twiddles and such. So let's see what you can do with this one. This is just a simple example of a weaker and longer version. On these grounds, our study's unique contribution to the literature lies in its emphasis on accountability. What would you do with that if you were clearing out some of the clutter, redundancies, throat clearing, filler words, that kind of stuff? What might you get rid of? And you go ahead and put it in the chat if you want. The whole sentence. Yes, at times that may be the right route. Remove on these grounds. Absolutely. So we can get rid of that. Our study is unique due to its focus on accountability. Yeah, that's a perfectly legitimate version. Personally, I would probably take out the due to and say our study is unique with its focus on accountability. So that's possible. Yeah. You might be able to take out emphasizes. Our study's unique contribution is an emphasis on accountability, right? Yeah, you've got a lot of really excellent ways that you could do it. The word unique, yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But yes, people tend to use it in a very vague way. So thank you for pointing that out, Tamara. And then when you get into most unique or very unique, that's so one way, and people have suggested a lot of different ways, and they're all valid because they may be appropriate for your circumstances. One way that I saw to shorten this is, and I need to get out of that. Our study contributes uniquely to the literature by emphasizing accountability. And the differences between my suggested solution here and the ones that you've got are primarily in what you want to emphasize. So if you're trying to emphasize what you're contributing to the literature, then you trim it one way. If you're trying to emphasize that accountability is the key feature of what you're doing, then you could trim it a different way. So never a unique, thank you, never a single way to trim. So you're trimming, but you're also thinking about what you need to keep because it's the most important feature of your sentence. So let's give it a try with a longer version here. And again, this is the last one about proteins. So see what you think you might be able to get rid of just in terms of clutter in this particular example. This one starts at 77 words, and I was able to get it down to 52 without too much. Remove in general, absolutely. Yeah. What else in general? So we've got that. Yes, you could say enzymes catalyze biological reactions. In the particular case where I was writing, it was important to emphasize that enzymes are proteins, but yes, you could trim it down more than that. In particular, oh yeah, get rid of the in particular. lots of throat clearing here. Remove usually and actually. Let's get rid of the actually, and then I'll find the usually. Thank you, there it is, got it. Would not otherwise occur, yeah. Remove comparatively, absolutely. So what we're getting rid of here, if you're into parts of speech, we're getting rid of a lot of the adverbs. And that's actually standard advice for writers in general. Particularly is, so instead of saying a particularly essential requirement, we could just say is an essential requirement with reference to, where did that get to? Yes, they are specific to both the reaction they catalyze and the substrates that they act on, absolutely. Yeah, let's get rid of that indeed. Indeed drives me crazy. It's obvious throat clearing and really doesn't add anything to almost any text that I've seen. Precise knowledge. Any other possibilities here? In fact, yep, yeah, all of these introductory phrases that are so common are really just throat clearing. Change to knowledge of. Precise knowledge, we get rid of the respect to and replace that with of. Precise knowledge of a structure. Yep. Let's see, what else can we do here? Is essential. Yeah, we could get, you could say is essential, or you could say is a requirement, either one. In this case, let's just say is a requirement. The field of, yep. Let's get rid of that. We've got crystallography. Gives, yes, let's get rid of the effectively and the we hope. We don't need the editorializing here. We just want to tell people crystallography gives direct visualization. There was another one. Yes, thank you. It's in there in the chat as well. You can get rid of the with reference to. We really don't need that either. And we could say for understanding catalysis. The other one that we could do, if we wanted to, is just say crystallography, and this is a Shun word, directly visualizes these structural relationships. Yes, we could, if you were trying to save characters, we could replace for understanding with to understand. Absolutely. Again, varieties of ways that we could do this depending on what we want to specifically emphasize in each sentence. So just for the fun of it, I'm going to get rid of this and put in. Okay, so I'm not sure if we're down to 52 words here, but we're pretty darn close. And again, it's clear that you are seeing the kinds of clutter that can be taken out. The tricky part is seeing that kind of clutter in your own writing. And again, it may be useful from time to time to swap a document or get a friend to read it, asking them specifically to look for these kinds of problems. The Shun words, the weak clutter or clumps of weak verbs, and the various kinds of clutter that you might be able to get rid of. Somebody else may be able to see it more easily in your writing than you can. So Any questions at this point on any of these three techniques? And along with that, a question for you. How easy did you find it to pick out the instances of the wordy writing and change them to shorter wording? Was it easy, not so easy, difficult? Yeah, Jessica makes an excellent, and Jonathan as well, excellent point. It's easy because it's something you've never seen before, and it's something that you didn't write. So that definitely makes it easier. And as Karen says, when you're clearly looking for a specific kind of wordiness, and you've got that in your mind, it can make it easier to pick those out, even in your own writing. Question for you again, which tip did you find most useful or easiest to use? Getting rid of the shun words, using strong verbs, or picking out the clutter and tossing it in the trash? Throat clearing, yeah, decluttering, yeah. Those can be fairly easy to spot. Not always. Actually, I'm just going to grab a book here. No, I'll leave it. I'll show it some other time. Yeah, personally, I find pulling out the shun words one of the easiest things to do, just because you're just looking for TION of, and you can actually do a find and replace if you're working in a Word document to find those. But now, one more question for you. Are there other strategies that you use personally? If you can put those in the chat, I'm going to take any suggestions from the chat and add them to a resource document that will be up on the In Residence webpage once I get it completed. So in that resource document, I'll include my tips and then any tips that you would like to add, or you're welcome to send them to me directly. If you think of something the next time you're writing, you say, oh yeah, I use that all the time and it works really well. Maybe somebody else should hear about it as well. Now, one bonus tip. And then I'll go back to the chat. This helps when you've got a limit on the number of pages or number of characters. And the idea is to basically use shorter words. We use a lot of long words in academic writing. Some of them are needed because they are very specific terms to our field or whatever, but not all of them are needed. And you can make a sentence easier to read and easier to understand by using shorter words rather than the $10 words that we think makes our writing sound more professional. Sometimes it just makes the writing harder to read. Yeah, and Elizabeth's comment here about being concerned about how direct to be. How confident you sound about a statement clearly is linked to how confident you truly are about the statement. So if you need to say something may be like this because that's the best that you know, then you have to use the may. If you don't need those hedging words, then you're better off to be direct because it makes your information more clear to the people who are reading it. They're not worried about, well, okay, do they really know this? Or are they just thinking that it might be possible? So how directly you write should be a reflection of how directly you know the information that you're stating. Grammarly, tends to be less reliable. It will often tell you to correct things that are actually perfectly correct. But it can be useful to point out things that you might want to think about. But I wouldn't take results from something like Grammarly to be gospel in terms of writing style or grammar itself. I've heard good things about the Hemingway app, particularly if you're trying to write concisely, because that's what Hemingway was all about, writing absolutely directly, bluntly, clearly. I haven't used it itself. Writing Pro8 is one I haven't heard of. I have to take a look at it. Jessica is saying one of the things that she does to shorten things is deleting the. And I absolutely agree. Often you can take them out. You don't need to specify everywhere that you use it. Occasionally you need it, but not everywhere. So if you're really at your wit's end or down to the last 10 words and you just got to clear something out, see if you can get rid of some of the thes in your sentences and keep the meaning the same. You'll find often that you can. Composing on Twitter, absolutely. Anything that helps you to be concise. Yeah, instances of anthropomorphism, just say we found versus that, saying something like this study showed that. Anthropomorphism itself, some people will argue that a study can't show, we show as the researchers. So I don't have a problem with the anthropomorphism itself, but as a way to cut words, just saying it more directly, we found these results, not the study showed that these results or these things happened. So yeah, good tips there. Thank you. Okay. So essentially, those are the tips that I wanted to present. If people have questions on the in-residence program in general, this could be a good time to ask them because we've got Jeff and Sarah here to elaborate a little bit. The other thing that I'd like, if you have ideas on topics for events or resources that you think might help your writing, put those in the chat as well, and I'll use them to generate some possibilities for things that we can do in the next few months through the in-residence program. It's not all set in stone, not even close to set in stone at this point. So, and other than that, if you want to get in touch with me, this is one of the email addresses that you can use. And you're welcome to send your tips on trimming length and your ideas for events or resources that you think might help you particularly, or a group of you and your peers. I'd be happy to hear from you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point. It's way over here. And back to you, Jeff, to wrap up.
Cathy, that was awesome. Thank you so much for walking us through practical examples. And this is, we often struggle with how do you make things interactive. You did a great job of that. This is like textbook, how to engage a group when we're not all together in the same room. So thank you very much for the practical tips and suggestions. I'm sure everyone's going to leave at least with something today that will help them to be a more effective writer and communicator. So thank you. Before anyone has any suggestions about how we can best utilize Cathy over the next few months, I wanted to let people know one of the things we're planning to do is to have a writers panel. So the plan is to engage some senior scientists who we know are excellent writers, have a group come together across different pillars from basic science to clinical to health services, and just talk about the craft. I think what Cathy talked about today is how she approaches her craft in some specific ways, but maybe having more senior people across those different areas talk about how they approach their work, the challenges and tribulations they've experienced, and sharing some of that wisdom with our group. And Cathy had a great suggestion today. I had thought about it from a faculty level, but to have learners who have also been successful with scholarships and publishing early in their career, what can we learn from them, or what have they learned that might be relevant for other learners in our group too. So just to let you know, those are things that we are thinking about, but completely open to suggestions to try to meet the interests and the needs that you have. Did you want to add anything to that, Sarah?
No, I think that sounds excellent, Jeff. Thank you. And thanks, Cathy. That was great. I am going to do the find and replace for all the TIONs, the Shuns in documents, because that's brilliant. I think Sandeep had a question about the program and if it's possible to join. Sandeep, it just started. So we have Cathy is our first in-residence person in the program. And so she's doing writing, but we plan to have other visiting scholars in residence in different topics. So it has just started. So keep an eye out via email. Once we're back face to face, which I hope will be soon, we'll be putting up posters and things also to advertise. But I think Cathy shared her email too, so feel free to reach out. Looks like Natari's getting a trim buddy. It took me a minute to figure out what you meant, Natari, but I get it now. Yeah, and lots of great comments.
Yeah. Cathy, I'm curious, as you were talking about, you had those passages from your thesis. Obviously, you've come a long way over the years. How did you, just general interest, how did you go from being a basic scientist to a professional writer? Like, connect the dots there for us.
I went through an intermediate stage of being an instructor. I was with the biochemistry department for a number of years, and that got me thinking more about what people are interested in learning and how they learn, and how you can make things more clear for them. And when I moved away from that, editing, just cleaning up people's work seemed like a good fit. And from that, I've gone from just doing things like training length or correcting spelling and grammar and so forth, and become more involved in the editing community and learning about making things clear for readers. And that, to me, has to be the foundational principle when we're writing things. It's not about what I know and what I want to tell you. It's about what do you know and what do you need that I need to talk about. And I think just keeping that basic principle in mind when you're writing, what's going to make it easier for people to understand what I'm saying? What do they need to do with the information that I'm going to give them? How can I present it in ways that will make their lives easier and make the information more effective for them? All of those things can come together in developing your writing. Yeah, but a buddy or one of the other activities that we're looking at highlighting in the next couple of months is writing accountability groups. And I know you've got some of those already going in the department. And I've touched base with the person who's running one. So we're going to offer that as a possibility. But there are other kinds of writing groups that you can use to develop your skills in writing. And we want to try to point out what you can do in those ways. And I will point out, in my own defense, those were doctored examples from my thesis. So I will not claim that the final trimmed examples that we came up with today were exactly what I wrote initially, but they were a lot better than that. Even then, so
we don't judge, Cathy. We don't judge.
Yeah, right.
Well, we do have a couple of minutes left. Would you mind taking questions if anyone has any?
If anybody has questions, sure.
Yeah,
that's great.
I have a question.
Okay.
I thought there was a really great point where a colleague had said, how confident should we sound? And I do wonder about the type, we're talking specifically about scientific writing here, and I'm assuming about publications, but Jeff and I have just been involved with going over people's promotion packages, which is sort of a version of that, or I'm thinking about people applying for jobs in the scientific realm. Do you have advice around that and balancing that, sounding too overconfident and trimmed? Just any advice you could provide would be much appreciated.
Yeah, promotion packages are particularly difficult because you don't want to sound as though you're trying to sell yourself. You just want to be very factual about things. And I think to some extent that's true in virtually any kind of academic writing, manuscripts and grant applications in particular, which are the two that I see most frequently. Yes, when you're writing a grant, you want to sell it in the sense of convincing people that it's worth giving you money, but you don't want to oversell it. And so that's where you're thinking about your readers and thinking about how confident you can honestly be in particular statements. So I think that being honest with yourself about what you know, what you think you're going to be able to do is the key for that kind of thing. And certainly when you're publishing a manuscript, you don't want to be overstating things. You don't want to make something sound as though you're absolutely confident in this particular statement when your data don't support it. Because, number one, it's probably not going to get published in the first place if you're overselling your results. So it's a fine balance, and yeah, it's something that you have to be thoughtful with. You cannot just go in and cut absolutely everything may or might or perhaps. Sometimes those words are absolutely appropriate for the level of confidence that you have in what you're saying. You can't go any further than that, honestly. So yeah, it's a good point, really good point.
Thanks, Cathy. Maybe if anyone has one or two more burning questions for Cathy while we've got her here. All right, well, Cathy will be with us for a few months, like we said. So if questions come up later on, please, I'm sure she'd welcome feedback and questions after today. So if we were all together, Cathy, we'd probably stand up and give you a standing ovation. In lieu of that, please, on behalf of our department, thank you for spending the time to present to us and with us today. Very educational, very practical, and we're looking forward to continuing this over the next little while. So thank you.
Thank you too. And I really appreciate how willing everybody was to just toss their ideas into the chat, because you can't have an interactive session if I'm the only one interacting. So that was great. Thanks very much.
Great. Thanks again, everybody.